Hello there YouTube. Today I am going to do a quick joystick replacement on my Switch left Joy-Con because it has begun to drift, as a lot of people have been finding in a lot of their consoles, and I'm quite annoyed about this because this is the second of the two Joy-Cons I'm having to repair. Luckily it's fairly easy to repair to do, so I'm just going to quickly show it off to you so that you can feel confident about doing it yourself, because I think this is one of those things where having to send it to Nintendo, even though they've said they'll do it for free, having to send it to Nintendo is a ball ache. So let's, instead of that, just do it ourselves, eh? Like I said, I'm still annoyed that they designed sticks with a resistive pad that wears out over time. I mean, who thought that was a good idea? That just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, let's get this thing open. I'll be very careful because I don't want to break anything. Here we go. Like with most electronics these days, as well as screws, it's also got clips. There we go. And you've also got to be very careful about these ribbons here. And you're going to have to get under the battery. Now, I don't think you actually have to unplug the battery. If I remember from my last one, you just have to get pH00 into that hole and it should lift out. So let's take the tri-wing off. That's 3-bladed, which is for all the outside ones. This is a very small cross-headed screwdriver, and this is going to help us take the battery out. Oh, this might actually be not small enough. We need the one down. Blimey, Nintendo, using your tiny, it says pH000. Yep, there we go. The smallest. Tiny little screw. Oh, no. No, you don't. This table is slightly tilted. Right, I don't want to take anything more out than I absolutely have to. It seems... is it clipped from the top? This one seems to be connected in slightly differently than the right Joy-Con. Oh, is that a clip? Yes, that's a clip. Is that a clip? Is it screwed in the middle? Oh, I might actually have to remove the battery for this one. That's frustrating. I hope the battery isn't... Yep, the battery was taped down, but now, as you can see, there are... well, I hope you can see, there are screws under the battery. So unlike the other one where you can actually get away without removing the battery, or at least without moving the battery. Right, so the pattern of these screws, that one is for this one, that one is for this one. Sorry, I tend to put the screws in the pattern they came out in so that they go back in the holes that they came from. So if there are any screw size differences, as you can see between these two, I don't have to worry about it. I just have to worry about not knocking the screws. Also, because I'm recording this, should I have any problem, I can always just look back at the recording and see which order they went in. So those are the 4 outside screws, these are the 5 internal screws, and now we lift that up, being very, very careful of these ribbon cables, because if you bend them too much, you can kill them. So right, this is the stick. Let's just check. It looks like it's fine. Now there is a little flap under here that by lifting it, it releases the ribbon cable. I don't know if you can see that. Let me see if I can zoom in with my camera over here. Right now, if I lift it up, you can probably see that. No, it's not focusing. Let's change the camera to autofocus. Right, come on camera, do your stuff. Right, you can just about, maybe, come on camera, you can just about see that tiny ribbon cable. Anyway, let's put that all back the way I had it. Put the zoom back and get this stick replaced. And now that is the first one. Now this other one is under this cable, So to get to that screw, I'm going to have to lift this flap and remove the cable, or unscrew this board, and considering moving the cable is probably easier, I'm going to do that instead. Right, I've lifted the flap, I'm not sure if you can see it's moved, and I'm going to very gently pull the cable out and unscrew the stick. The thing to remember, of course, is you want to be very, very gentle with all of these parts. Right. There is, it's not, the stick's not actually pulled out. There we go. Right. There is this cover that the stick has to fit through that I lifted it out of, so you're going to have to keep an eye and watch out for that. But otherwise, I mean, these sticks look identical. You wouldn't think that this has any problems, but it does. It just drifts constantly, and when you're playing into the Gungeon, not being able to control where you're walking, which is the left controller, makes it terribly difficult. And so this stick just drops in, then we're literally just going to reverse the procedure we used to take everything out, being very careful to put everything back to where we found it. Oops, I've forgotten which of the two screws this was. Are they the same? Yes, they're the same, so it doesn't actually matter with the joystick ones. I mean, this is the kind of thing, I think this is a more realistic repair than some of the ones you'll see on YouTube, because some YouTubers are godlike at doing repairs, and you just think, I couldn't do that, but this repair, you could do it. I think most any person could probably do this repair if you take your time, and when you make a mistake, like screwing down one screw without moving the ribbon cable, whoops, just take your time, back out, put it right, and do it again. I don't think you get a lot of realism on YouTube just because people want to show their best selves, whereas I just want to show what it's really like. It's fiddly, it's annoying and tedious at times, but you get the job done and it should work afterwards. And that's kind of what you want. You just want the thing to work. Right. So here is the other screw. Such a tiny little thing. Right, we lift this cable up very gently. The biggest thing with these cables is not to bend them hard. Really, that shoulder pad wants nothing more than to jump, doesn't it? Right, so let's put this new ribbon. Let's see, we want to move that ribbon out the way as much as possible, and then tuck this ribbon into place. I might actually need a pair of tweezers to make this easier. I might be getting my head in the way, if so I'm sorry. I'm trying to push this into the very narrow thin socket. There we go, I think that's as far in as it's going to go. And then we pull the tab down and that should latch it in. And one way to test it, although I don't suggest you do this, is to tug it and it doesn't come out. I don't suggest you do that because it is a very good way to break the cable, but seeing as this is a very cheap replacement stick, that's one cable that I'm not that worried about it breaking. It's all the others that I wouldn't really test that on. So this one can be pulled back into place via the two little clips, little sticky outy bits on either side. Right, that is as in as it's going to go, and then we lift the flap. The flap just acts as a lever to lock the clip into place. There we go. So that is now locked into place. Right, now we want this back in. This is the L button. We want this back in before we put the battery tray back on. Notice I've not disconnected the battery. So if my switch was on, this would still be, you know, live. So you've got to be very careful not to short anything. So this is the top left screw. When I screw screws in, I tend to wind them backwards until I feel them click into line with the thread that's already there, especially if they're in plastic. Sometimes you can't feel it and you just have to go for it forwards. But if you feel the threads drop into line, you can be pretty sure you've aligned the front of the screw thread with the front of the socket thread. So this should be there. You just felt a very slight movement downwards and a thunk. Right, now the battery can go back in where it was. I don't expect to need to put any new tape on it because it seems pretty happy where it was in the first place. Now the one final thing to do is to make sure it's as tight in as it was in the first time, and make sure that these aren't getting pinched. It looks like the design is for this cable to get pinched. If you can see the angle it turns at, which it doesn't seem like a good idea to me, but what do I know? I'm not an engineer. Now that cable could, there is a cable here that could get in the way of that screw post, so we just need to make sure that it isn't when we're closing it up, preferably by pushing it slightly under the screw post if possible, but not, you know, we don't want to bend it too much there. It's very slightly caught under the screw post now. So close this up, and now it's just time to put the old screws back on. I mean, it looks fiddly, but you know, this has taken me what, a couple of minutes in comparison to having to send it to Nintendo to get them to do it. And I mean, they say they do it free, but I've had people, well, I've seen people on the Switch Reddit say they've had all sorts of problems getting theirs back, getting a different colour, or even being sent the opposite one than they were supposed to, as in they've just been sent a complete replacement rather than a repair. And sometimes Nintendo don't even get the right one, so they've sent in the left one and been sent back the right one, and you know, all sorts of stuff like that. So it's just easier to do it yourself. It's just frustrating that we have to do it in the first place. Right, so that is that one. Oh, these are non-ferrous screws. It's so frustrating when you get these, because you can't just stick them to the screwdriver. Doesn't matter if your screwdriver is magnetic, the screw isn't. Come on, there we go. And that is done. So now we get a switch. How dusty the screen is. We click this in place, and we launch into the Gungeon. No, do it later. So now we're going to see whether everything's working. Unfortunately, Enter the Gungeon takes rather a while to to boot up on Switch. It's rather slow on Switch. But regardless, it's a great way to have the game. It's a brilliant game on PC. But being able to have it when you're sitting around the house or wandering outside is just amazing. It's just a shame about these load times. So let's quick start. That's what we really want, isn't it? Just get straight into the game. I might have to cut some of this out for time, but if you're seeing this, then I probably didn't bother. Right, here we are. So now is this one we've changed. So we've got directions and we have parts of directions, and crucially it's not now drifting down, or most importantly stopping me from moving downwards when I'm pressing that. Let's check the other functions of this one. That opened the animalcom, so the minus button's working. So we can change weapons with left and right. Holding up would drop our item, but we don't have that. Holding down drops our current weapon, so that's fine. Take a screenshot, fine. We can dive, which is the function of the R, and L brings up the map. So all of these buttons are working. And the Bluetooth is working. So that I would call one successful repair, and it took me almost no time. The part that I used to replace it was about £3.50 or something like that. So the part is cheap, and all I used were a screwdriver kit that I already had lying around. You do need the tri-wing, which is a 3-pointed screw, but if you've got any security set, you've probably got the tri-wing in it. You need a very small Phillips head, but you can find those pretty much anywhere. Yeah, I'm not going to focus on that, thanks very much. And having a pair of tweezers is not absolutely necessary, but is really helpful. So that is not a lot for a repair that replaces a stick that was getting stuck downwards. Is that the right way? Yeah, that would have been downwards all the time, rather than or no, it was getting stuck downwards sometimes, and sometimes it wouldn't let me go downwards. So that makes doing tricky dodges a bit difficult. So anyway, thanks for watching, coming on this journey with me, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.